Hi and welcome to the Mailbox on another sunny Sunday. So if you hear any sounds coming out of the old Yorkshire air conditioning there, i.e. an open window, then that's just neighbours. They should be largely going inside now, sort of early evening as I'm doing this, re-recording this because it all went a bit wrong earlier. So today what we've got some comments on the WoW token situation. War mode, of course, has been topical this week after the video I did on that. Startings of Warcraft, the old storyline there, some Sylvanas lore issues, and a couple of other things, including we've got an Idiot's Corner this week. There was actually some competition for that spot, but the scientist in me could only pick one of them. So, first of all, where's the mailbox? Not enough people got it right last week. Several people did get it right. It was indeed Sylvanas, Blades Edge Mountains, but did not meet the required 20. So Gnomes has once again been banned on my stream channel. So if you want to get it unbanned, we need 20 people to be able to correctly identify the location of that mailbox. And you need to be able to say which zone it's in, specifically which zone it's in, and which specific location within that zone it's in. I don't need coordinates. The name of the place will be fine. 20, and then I will unban the word gnome and gnome-related issues from the Twitch channel. So, let's get on to the first one. So, War Mode, yes, this is one of the features I am quite excited about for Battle for Azeroth. I've been looking forward to this. So I did a little bit of video where I was musing about a few things. But there are a few little comments here. So first of all, it says, War Mode is a must for all serious players. It increases rewards from World Quest by 10%. 10% more Azerite is a lot when you are a Mythic Raider. Now, I would disagree with that for a number of reasons. First of all, it's not actually 10% more Azerite. It's 10% more Azerite from World Quest, but Blizzard themselves have said it's very difficult to really get a handle on at the moment, I think. But Blizzard have said that we're going to get the bulk of our Azerite from islands. Now, I can understand people looking at the situation. If you look at, I haven't done a video on World Quest yet. I am going to very soon, potentially today or tomorrow. And if you look at that, you see there's loads of World Quests that reward Azerite, so there's plenty of scope there. The problem is when you actually go around, you actually realise it takes a long time to get around those zones. It is not as easy as doing the World Quests on the Broken Isles. The zones are fundamentally more difficult to get around, particularly the enemy faction ones where when you hit 120, you're not even going to have the flight points unlocked. So getting around those is going to take a hell of a long time. So, but Island's much more efficient. You just instantly sign up for it. And as I say, Blizzard themselves have said that's where they expect us. Because that's the chief reward of Islands. That's the main draw of them as a good source of Azerite. Where, of course, the bonus won't apply. The bonus is purely for world content. So I don't think it will be that much at all. The other thing is, if the war mode works as it's intended to, which is to allow people who want to do world PvP to be together in the same shard, and those who don't want to do it to bugger off out of it, I'll be one of those buggering off out of it, then you're going to have a lot of, not just individuals engaged in world PvP with you as well, but groups of death squads going around. I mean, that's inevitable. So it's not really going to be worth the time you're spending doing it. You know, the reward is supposed to be there to, compensate you a little bit for the inconvenience, but you're still supposed to be ultimately someone who wants to do the PvP as well. If you're doing it just because you think it's going to be more rewarding, I'll just hope there's no one about. And maybe at certain off-peak times, you may even be right. Maybe there are some times, like at ridiculous time when people should be sleeping in that particular area. Might be a bit more difficult on NA because you sort of share those realms with, Australia, New Zealand, all that sort of area, don't you? So, quite a lot of varied time zones in on that one. It might not, I don't know whether, but in Europe, potentially there's a lot of times when everyone else would be in bed where maybe you can do that. Who knows? But I think at most times, I don't see it being an efficient way to get Azerite at all. So yeah, but the other thing is we don't even know how much Azerite we realistically need. Maybe it'll be relatively straightforward to farm the amount we need. Maybe it won't be such a slog, an endless tunnel to actually getting the Azerite we need as artifact power that we need, as it has been in Legion. Maybe they'll tone it down a little bit. I don't know. That's an unanswered question for me. One of many unanswered questions about BfA for me, anyway. Next one. So, there was a number of boneheads. This isn't our idiot of the week. This is just our, But I did the video, and people were going, oh, your argument is flawed because this, and this. And I was thinking to myself, didn't actually present any arguments. It was me simply musing. The whole video was about, would you as a PvE player be encouraged to do this, and would it really be necessary? And what I was saying is, because when I've talked about world PvP in the past, you've got loads of people going, no, there's loads of people really want to do world PvP, loads of them. So there I was basically making the comment, well, if there's so many, and you're all going to get sharded together anyway, there don't even have to be that many, why do you need extra rewards if world PvP is actually what you want to do? So someone's saying here, I am vocally opposed to PvE content in WoW. Blizzard giving rewards for doing PvE content means players are not interested in it. Which is an absolute load of nonsense, because the point I was making is that the war mode on is PvP content. That's what it is. So why does it need to give rewards that would entice PvE players? Because it says, do you see how retarded your arguments sound in reverse? They haven't reversed my argument. They're reversing my argument by saying, oh, PvE shouldn't give gear. But PvP gives gear. And I'm not saying that shouldn't happen. In fact, world PvP gives gear because there's extra sources of gear in Battle for Azeroth. Because just going around doing your world PvP means you fill up, you get another bar to fill up. And when it gets filled up, you get another piece of gear. So if you kill players in the world, you're getting gear for it. So that's an extra source of gear. And when you've got all the pieces of gear for it, because it's not random, you're not going to get duplicates. Once you've completed your set, the bar still continues. The next bar that fills up, you get better gear. Which is, if it works exactly like that, that's what they said anyway. That sounds like a fantastic system to me. That's not the issue. The issue is, like, the argument would only be reversed if they were to say, oh, well, how would you like it if they removed the PvP rewards from doing PvE? I wouldn't care. And I don't think there are actually any. I think that's basically what I've said on all these comments. I don't think there are any PvP rewards for doing PvE content. If there are, then that's fine. Remove them. Don't care. I'm not bothered. Simple as that. And the next little comment, where was it? There it is. It says, so this was completely the opposite to the first comment. It says, most likely the majority will level with war mode off, even people on PvP servers. Well, first of all, there won't be any PvP servers. They won't exist anymore. You will have two types of server. You will have normal, and you will have RP realms, and that'll be it. And the RP realms, of course, will be very I don't know exactly. I know someone asked the question about exactly how it's going to work on that, and I don't like to answer it myself because I'm not 100% sure. But obviously, one of the key features of RP realms is they don't do the sharding thing, really. So, I imagine you'll be mixed in with those players, and they'll be there, but they won't be able to kill you or something like that, I guess. But I'm only guessing. But anyway, never mind that. It says it's simply not worth it. It says, cool, Blizz just killed world PvP even more. And I'm thinking to myself, so this is it. Now, every time I say this, you get a number of people going, no, I play it for different reasons. Here's my perception of people who enjoy the world PvP in World of Warcraft. They're basically people who just like picking on weaker people. They wait to see someone who's been beaten half to death by a mob, and then they close in and finish them off while they're weakened. Or they see someone on very low health, therefore very poor gear, and go and kill those. Or they gang up with some friends and again pick on lone players. Now that, to me, if that's fun to you, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry for whatever tragedy has struck you in life. But that's compensating for failures in life. That's what that is. Now, if there are people who genuinely just like the idea of world PvP, or maybe they feel that battlegrounds and arenas are too contrived, okay, fine. I mean, I like the concept of large-scale PvP. I've talked about this before, like the world PvP that existed in Warhammer Online and exists now in Elder Scrolls Online. But there it makes sense, and you're still... The whole point of that is it's totally consensual. That whole area, you go into it, is to say, I want to PvP. I'm not at all in favour of people playing the game in the way they want to be playing it, and having someone else force them to play it in a different way than the way they want to play it, especially when the way they want to play it is the bulk of the game anyway. This game is not really a PvP focused game. And all this comment like this does is just to reinforce that view. There were so many comments like this. And the point is this. What someone like this is afraid of is the fact that they're now... Because it's not that they're not going to come across other players to PvP with. Oh, no, no, no. There's going to be more. Because remember, you're sharded together. There need only be 5% of the player base wanting to will PvP. That doesn't matter. It will put you all together. So there will be no shortage of players. You know, this whole sharding technology is there to manage the number of players in a particular area. So there will be plenty of people. What they're afraid of is that the zones will now be full of, instead of being 95% or more, people just minding their own business. In other words, pray that they can... Because, you know, normal situation now, this is when I first moved to PvP servers, I thought it was just going to be having to beat people off with a stick all the time. The reality has not been like that. It's been fine. You know, I can go around my business, hardly ever getting bothered. Actually, the first time I ever really got bothered on a regular basis is when Argus opened up. So there, you know, the amount of ganking increased massively. But nonetheless, generally speaking, you're left to it. Even on Argus, most of the time it's okay. And that's because the majority of people, even on PvP realms, just want to do their own thing. They're not actually bothered about world PvP. And so these players are like that idea that they can just go around, have a little nosy, pretend they're just questing themselves, you know, wait to see the, you know, like a lion, wait to see which antelope's struggling a little bit and then go after that. Whereas now what's going to happen, not only is every player that you encounter someone who has deliberately chosen to put war mode on, and therefore someone who is potentially eyeing you up as well. In fact, not just potentially, but likely eyeing you up as a potential target. But now they've been given some extra reward for it. Because the reward for it in World PvP at the moment is, what is it? It's not really much, is it? There isn't really much reward in game. Whereas now there's a more significant reward. So, yes. And if you kill 10 players without dying yourself, you're going to be on the map as an icon for everyone to see. It's like, oh, let's focus in on them. And I think that's what they don't like. They don't like the fact that all of a sudden they're going to be lumped in with people like them. There you go. Right, onto the WoW token thing. Pay to win. So is a WoW token pay to win? I don't agree with the statement, but I don't dismiss it either. Obviously, what I imagine... Unfortunately, there were no comments like this that were any more eloquent than this. I imagine, this is just me reading into it, what they're talking about is the fact you can use real-life money to get gold, and then you can use the gold to buy, you know, BOEs and stuff like that drop from raids and guilds sell and stuff like that. Where I disagree with it is because, like, for example, me, I buy BOEs at the start of the expansion to get myself ready to be able to go to the heroic dungeons more quickly and to basically get raid ready more, you know, for when the raid comes out. Is that pay to win? Maybe. The thing is, in my mind, what I look at is this. It's not like a new piece of gear comes out and the only people who can access it. Like, what I consider pay to win is a game with an online store. New piece of equipment comes out. The only way to pay for it or to get it is with the currency, which has to be bought either with accumulating it with a subscription for which you pay, or by actually spending money to get more of that currency. And that is clearly pay to win. In this particular case, you could have someone get the same item with gold that they've got from in-game as well. And that's what, to me, stops it being pay to win. And the other thing as well is you can't get the best stuff just by paying for it anyway. All you can get is a few scabby BOEs. I mean, after that initial round of a few weeks, I never buy anything off the auction house gear-wise for my main character because I get it from raiding. And even if you were to save up and buy a boost through a mythic raid, for example, it doesn't buy you the Azerite needed, the artifact level needed to be able to access the traits on the good Azerite pieces that will drop. Because that'll be the premier content from there. There'll be trinkets, sure, but ultimately it'll be about the Azerite armour that you'd want from there. And, you know, it doesn't help you do that. So, yeah, I don't dismiss the argument at all. I can see why people would say it. but it isn't one I agree with, really. And another one on the token thing. So someone was saying here, so I have a friend who only pays for his game time with gold, not because he's broke, but just philosophically opposed to the submodel. So I'm not quite sure about that. We should elaborate a little bit on that, because I'm not quite sure what the opposition is. Because if the submodel actually means you pay less on the game, because with other models, like other MMO models I've seen, you are encouraged to spend quite a lot. And if I'm honest, with other games, I do spend more. Because not only will I get a sub as well anyway, because if it has a sub model, even if it's optional, it's always worth it. Always worth it. And then, even then, there's extra things to get as well. Because they have to make money, they're a business, and they have to then have a very active online store. Which means, and obviously, how do you get people to part with more cash than they might otherwise do? Time limited offers. That's how it works. So you look at this thing and you go, I'm not sure if I really want it. And then it's like, oh, it's only a day left. Oh no, but I might want it. I better get it just in case. Or I definitely want this thing. I'll just wait till my subscription gives me enough currency to get it. Oh no, I've only got a week to go. I'd better top up and get it. That sort of thing. Whereas a submodel, you know how much you're going to pay month on month on month. Unless you have to move guild to pay the transfer fees. But by and large, you know how much you're going to pay. So I'm sort of, more in favour, I suppose. Even though I keep talking about the fact I think Blizzard should add more stuff to their store, not pay to win stuff, cosmetic stuff. But I've talked about this before. I have reasons for that. It's not because I want them to get more money off me. It's because I'd rather they got their money from cosmetic stuff on the store than charging silly amounts of money for services such as realm transfers and stuff like that. But anyway, it says this time last year you just needed to make one Skyer golem for about 6 weeks game time, and your friend he reliably made enough surplus gold to convert into Hearthstone packs, Destiny 2, etc. I don't know about that. And it says, now I think he will struggle to keep up with the sub price. Obviously, it has gone up significantly. I mean, obviously, after the thing on Thursday, it went up and then it came back down again. But inevitably, it will go up again. In the next expansion, of course, things will go up. I mean, look at Legion, just for a little idea. I'm not saying it's going to go in proportion to this. Legion, the most expensive mount was a 2 million gold spider, wasn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. In Battle for Azeroth, it's going to be a 5 million mount with an auction house on it. All right, you can get it for 4 million if you wait till you're exalted with that faction. But that's still double the most expensive mount in there. So, I'm not saying that the economy will effectively double, but it's going to increase, isn't it? Value of gold is going to... The value of one gold is going to go down. So inflation is going to go up. And that, of course, means that the WoW token will increase in value. Of course, hopefully you'll be able to sell your Sky Golem for a bit more. Or something else, something else you can craft. Maybe it's a case of thinking about that. But, yeah, I have some sympathy for that if people have got themselves into a nice little system of being able to farm enough gold to pay for that. And now it's like, ooh. I suppose worst comes to worst. It's not like you have to either get enough gold or do the sub. You could do month on, month off, couldn't you? Get a sub for a month, because I don't think you save that much by getting like 6 months at a time. Or maybe you could, no, that'd be a bit silly. So you could do 1 month where you pay for it with like real life money, and then the next month, because you've now got 2 months worth of gold saved up, that is now enough for another month. It's not terribly satisfactory, I guess, but that would be an option there. That would be possible. If it's any comfort to you, Blizzard don't like that idea any more than you do. Because Blizzard love if people are buying WoW tokens for gold, that's amazing for them. Because the amount of money because I buy the WoW tokens for real life gold every now and then and put it on the auction house, so I'm the supply end of it. And it costs twice as much as a monthly sub to buy one WoW token. So when people are getting it for gold, that's brilliant for Blizzard, because that basically means someone has paid twice as much as a monthly sub for the 1 month. So they'd be on your side, and anything they can do to help you out, I think they would do. But obviously, it's just... You just have to be able to make as much gold as other people who do the same thing are able to make. That's ultimately what it comes down to, because the price is largely determined by how much people are I suppose, willing to pay for it. You know, it's all a supply and demand thing, sort of a managed supply and demand situation within certain constraints. So next one, Warcraft influence. I love this one. So it says, anyway, Warcraft Humans and Orcs actually was a Warhammer game mere months before the game was launched. The license was rescinded, so they had to tweak the game to not make references to Warhammer so they could still sell it. I do like their sneaky references to things like Warhammer, though. There was a great line in Warcraft 3 where you're playing humans. The dwarf, I say humans, you had dwarves in there as well. So the dwarf gyrocopter, when you clicked on one of the things it could say when you click on it was, "This Warhammer cost 40k." I like that one. But anyway, sorry, I digress. It says, not to sell it after the amount of time, effort and money they put into it would be disastrous for Baby Blizz. Warcraft 2 was released less than 2 years later, which helped push the franchise further away from Warhammer and create its own identity, and the popularity really started to take off. But ultimately, I think, you know, my video wasn't anything to do with this, by the way. I was just, I never criticise a game from, like, borrowing off another game, because I think they have to. I think it's important. So Dungeons and Dragons, for example, Warhammer and Warcraft have all borrowed fairly heavily off Tolkien, and, you know, sort of off each other to a certain. Obviously, Dungeons and Dragons sort of came first, and it's important to do that because all the people designing all those three great gaming franchises were basically teenagers working in their, like, bedroom or garage or something like that. They were designing a gaming system, and I think when you do that, what you want to do is make a really good game, which they all did. But you haven't got time to create a completely unique, rich world as well. That can take years, and does take years. You haven't got those years. But then there's another reason, I think, as well. Because so on the one hand, you need a ready-made world. Obviously, you don't directly, well, you sort of do copy, but you add things onto it just to, you know, equivalent to to copying something out of a book for an essay and changing the words a bit, I suppose. Which, all right, technically is plagiarism. Never mind. Creative license, some people call it, don't they? But other than that, you also want something with, if you want to get people into your gaming system, it wants to have some familiarity. I mean, I can't speak for the early days of Dungeons and Dragons, but early days of Warhammer, because even though I didn't play it in those early days, I know people who did when I was growing up. And, you know, it was basically, the models made were just basically, you'd look at them, they were Lord of the Rings models, let's be honest. They were Tolkien, they were based very much on Tolkien's world, and then they made game systems to use with those models. So inevitably the game systems were all very much based. You could just have been playing something in Tolkien's world, you know. But then as years went on, it developed its own storylines, its own lore, its own unique races, and Skaven being my favourite. And it went from there. And the same thing with all the other ones. Dungeons and Dragons, same thing, now has a very rich original world of its own, and so does Warcraft. But if you look at Warcraft storyline, all the original stuff came much later. You know, and even when you get some people point out, oh yeah, but Medivh was even in Warcraft 1. You had a mission to go and deal with Medivh. Yes, you did, but the Medivh story wasn't in Warcraft 1. Warcraft 1, it was go to that tower and kill an evil warlock called Medivh. That was it. That was the entirety of the story. There was none of this Guardian of Tirisfal. There was none of this, you know, Corrupted by the Fell. All that came in novels later, and obviously was, you know, further developed in Warcraft 2. So, you know, I think, yeah, when you're coming up any system, and it should be, you know, it should be more than forgiven, it should be applauded, really, because it's the only way I think a good gaming system can really develop. It has to have something to pin itself on in the very, very early days. Obviously, then it needs to sort of develop its own stuff. And I think all those gaming systems really did. Next one. So, Sylvanas' stuff. So, this is, again, it came down to the old Horde versus Alliance. Sorry, it doesn't matter how many curveballs you try and throw my way. The bottom line is every war between the Horde and Alliance, every single one, has been instigated by the Horde. Okay? If you can't deal with that, if you can't accept the fact that the Horde are warmongers, and also accept the fact that within the Horde there are genuinely nice, honourable, even peaceful people, then tough, because that's the reality of it. Just like in the Alliance, there are some bad apples as well, which I'll be coming to with this comment, but ultimately the Alliance are not warmongers. Sorry, they go to war to defend themselves, and that's all there's ever been in the story. Whether you agree that's a realistic storyline, is another matter. But that has been the story. So it says here, your alliance is responsible for Sylvanas, the entire undead race, and the whole Wrath of the Lich King expansion, by way of your spoiled little princeling, patricide, regicide, genocide. No, it wasn't at all. You know, that was entire. And the comment I made was, actually, I think you'll find that that was all down to the Lich King. And the Lich King was Ner'zhul, who was an orc shaman, you know, part of the Horde. So then another comment came from someone else, and it said... So it says, actually, it was his obsession with vengeance and fanaticism that caused his downfall. Well, first of all, I didn't talk about his downfall. His downfall entirely was down to, I'll grant you that, the whole culling of Stratholme, that was him, all right? Although, you know, the Burning Legion, the Dreadlords sort of set it up, you know, and without the Lich King, that could never have happened. Nonetheless, at that point, he wasn't being corrupted. At that point, that was him reacting very badly to that situation. So I'm perfectly happy to accept that Arthas was not a good sort, which is why I don't really hold him up. I don't hold him at any point to be, you know, a paladin type character. He fell from grace there. But he was not capable of raising Sylvanas up, even if he wanted to. Simply incapable. The only reason he was able to do that was because of the powers given to him by Ner'zhul and the sword also from Ner'zhul. That was it. Okay? Now, some people may well choose to argue, well, that was really the Burning Legion scheme and Ner'zhul was no longer an orc at that point because he'd been twisted by the Burning Legion. Sure, you can argue that if you want. But nonetheless, it was not the Alliance. The Undead had nothing to do with the Alliance. Sylvanas being raised up had nothing to do with the Alliance. Okay, although it was a former Alliance person that did it, he was directly under the control of the Lich King at that point. And of course, more important, never mind motivations, was given the tools to do it by the Lich King as well. I mean, one thing actually, I'm surprised no one said, but maybe, you know, I'm not giving people enough credit here. People know that this is a false argument anyway. People may well say, well, the whole thing about the Horde invading Azeroth was the Burning Legion scheme in the first place, and they would be manipulated just the same as the Alliance. I think people in the know that that's not true as well. If anyone even had that idea, because Thrall, for example, had that idea in Warcraft 3, and Grom had to put him right and say, actually, no, we all knew what we were doing, okay? Sure, they didn't necessarily know what the ultimate design of the Burning Legion was, but all of those orcs that drank the blood of Manoroth knew full well what they were doing. Grom said that himself. He said they knew they were drinking demon's blood. They knew what it would do to them. They knew. They did it willingly because they thought it'd be great to be green and angry and strong. So, you know, that's the Horde's fault too. You can argue that the Burning Legion, it's their fault too. But what you can't argue is that any of that was anything to do with the Alliance. And in fact, had the Alliance had any say about it, Arthas would have been stopped immediately because they attempted to do that. But, oh, guess what? Thanks to the powers given them to the Lich King, they weren't able to. Anyway, personal loot. So there's another personal loot one come up. Love the old personal loot discussion. So someone's actually stated what their particular support for personal loot is, so only fair that I go through and explain how I disagree with these. By the way, there is another post going around about personal loot, a more structured one. It's getting a bit of support on the it's on the NA forums, but it's on the beta forums, so I think anyone who's in the beta has access to it. And I know that can be a limited number of players, but there's an increasing number of people getting into the beta, which means an increasing number of people who would be able to take part in it. You can easily find it in the beta general forums. I'll try and remember to put a link to it in the description below. But if I forget and you're interested, then it'll be up there. And so anyway, so this one says, eliminate split runs. So in terms of the forced personal loot, we're not talking about the top guilds. This person did actually explain elsewhere that they're not talking about if they're going to do it, that's a different thing. Great, I agree with that totally. What we're talking about is the majority of mythic raiding guilds doing split runs, because there's, I don't mean that the majority of them do, although quite a lot do now. But the majority of the ones who do split runs, the mythic raiding ones, won't be doing it with this enforced thing because the advantages become much less and therefore doesn't become worth it. When you're calculating effort and reward, the effort is much higher than the payout from it. So it's not going to be worth it for a lot of those guilds. Great. But they could have achieved the same thing by just enforcing personal loot. Sorry if you can hear stuff outside. if you can just enforce personal loot in Heroic and Normal. And I know there'll be some people who won't like that either, but given that they're going to do it anyway, if they'd have done it for Normal in Heroic only and not in Mythic, you'd still have that benefit of eliminating split runs. But the other thing I would say about this point is Blizzard actually said it's not to eliminate split runs. Because I'll be honest, the first time Ian Hazakos talked about this in detail, he was talking about the advantage. He talked a lot about it getting rid of split runs. Even though he didn't specifically say that that was the reason, but he talked about it so much you got the impression. And for that, even though I disagreed with it, you'd still applaud them. Because ultimately, if they were doing it to eliminate split runs, what they're actually doing is they're identifying some content that people feel compelled to do, and they're removing that compulsion. And that's to be applauded. I wish they would do more of that. But by them saying it's not for that purpose, they lose what little respect I have for the decision in the first place. But as I say, you know, in order to eliminate split runs, all you need to do is do it for Normal and Heroic, not for that. Now, on to eliminates player bias. Actually, I would argue it makes it worse. Now, what they're talking about with player bias, I'm guessing here, is dodgy loot masters. You know, in other words, dodgy loot councils, which are not as numerous as people make out. However, here's the thing. If you've got a dodgy loot council, you will still have a dodgy loot council after this. People are behaving as if personal loot means it's your loot. If you're in a mythic raiding guild and your guild decides that if a piece of loot can be traded, then you are going to trade it to the master looter and they're going to distribute it, that still happens. Okay? And if you disagree with that rule, by the way, you will be kicked out of the guild. It's that simple. But then here's the thing. Let's say the guild doesn't. Let's say the guild can't be arsed with the hassle. And I wouldn't blame them if they can't. I wouldn't fancy the hassle of dealing with all this because there's a whole lot of drama coming here. And they just say, you know, it's up to you. You sort it out amongst yourselves. Horse trading, in other words. Then what you do is you have player bias. You know, instead of just needing, all you need for effective loot council is like 3 sensible people. Now you're changing it to everyone having to be sensible. So now you'll have the horse trading, for example. You'll have people giving a gear to someone else because they pay you cold hard gold for it or something like that, or do some deal where they, you know, you trade it for something else they've got. So instead of people giving the gear according to how it's going to best benefit the guild, it's just giving it on that horse trading basis, or on the bias basis, it might be just giving it trading between friends and not to you and stuff like that. So it actually worsens it, really. It's saying about more loot than master loot. That's a totally irrelevant comment because there is no master loot in BfA. So how can it give more loot than master loot? It doesn't. And also, as I say, if the loot ends up becoming chaos crystals or just vended, then who cares whether you get more loot? What's better, getting 4 pieces of loot that are going to go to some use, or getting 6 pieces of loot that all get vended because they can't be traded to someone who can use it? Now, obviously, those are 2 extremes. You don't actually get that situation, but you get more effective distribution of loot under master loot and personal loot. And you know, even if you don't want to go through the maths of that, which is fairly straightforward, there is a reason why everyone uses master loot that has the option to do it in progress guilds. You know, it's simple as that. So that's not an advantage. That's just, and that's not even a matter of opinion. That's just a fact. That's a mathematical fact. The reason they upped the personal loot amount was to try and encourage people to use it, or to try and make the pill a little easier to swallow for those who, because remember, some people already had it enforced in Legion as well anyway, like pugs. So that was the reason for that. It was just basically a con. But with no master loot anyway, there is no more personal loot dropping. It's the amount of loot that drops is the amount of loot that drops. Better loot distribution, again, is not at all. It's, if it was better loot distribution, guilds would do it. The serious guilds would do it. They don't. So it's not. It's a worse loot distribution system. So there you go. And you say here, you see plenty of bosses where nothing needed ever drops and everything gets disenchanted. You know you don't. You see some bosses where that happens. You know, I remember like at the end of every expansion where we've had the really long lead-ins. Unfortunately, that's been a bit better in Legion. Say Archimond, you know, Hellfire Citadel Mythic. People were still getting loot from that a year after we'd cleared it all. You know, just well, close to a year after we all cleared it all, because that's basically when Legion came out. So, yeah. And that we didn't even have Titan Forging then. So, no, you don't. You sometimes see when it's been on farm for a very long time. But almost never is everything just disenchanted. But the last comment about saying you preferred personal loot, that's fine. If you prefer it, that's fine. But that's a matter of opinion. And should people really be forced into a particular way of playing based on someone's matter of opinion? And you say RNG, that's the same for everyone, but it's not. I did a whole video on why it's not the same for everyone at all. Because if you, as I say, if you play a class and spec that shares a loot table with lots of other players in your raid, you've got more chance of something dropping that you can use. And all it needs to be is the person doesn't need it, and you've got a chance there. Whereas if you're, let's say you're a warrior in a raid that doesn't have either a Death Knight or a Paladin, which is not that ridiculous an idea, then the only plate drops you're getting are the ones you get yourself. Whereas a Boomkin, on the other hand, is likely to have lots of sources of leather. And of course, there's more people needing it. But remember, these things recycle week after week. The chances of something decent dropping that no one else wants is much higher. And the same goes to weapons. Caster weapons, there'll be plenty of casters in it. Intellect stuff. Well, if that's even a thing. I'm not sure it is even going to be a thing. I suppose some weapons will have intellect on it and not the other stats as well. But yeah, there'll be some classes and specs that have more people that share stuff, and there'll be some that have much fewer. To the next one. Yeah, this was a bit of a funny one, wasn't it? So, this was me talking about in the Azeroth review on Tuesday about the fact that alternate universe is just generally really not done very well. And I was actually saying, I think there's been a few Doctor Who's where it's been done well, but there's also been a few dodgy ones as well. But by and large, when it's done, it's bad. You just get bad situations. And then I did have to correct myself and say, actually, Back to the Future did it pretty well as well. But it says here, I'd consider Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic to be alternate universe, since it takes place during a time period so far from the original Star Wars timeline, it might as well be. But that's not true. In fact, Star Wars, the modern Star Wars stuff, as in the stuff that the film's based on, frequently references the older stuff, the Old Republic stuff. So no, I don't think we can buy that, because obviously they're saying the Old Republic stuff is actually really well worked out. Yes, it is. But it's not alternate universe. Alternate universe specifically, there is no alternate universe theme unless it specifically relates to similar people within the same thing. So, let's say, with Warlords of Draenor, it was alternate universe. It was also time travel. It's like 30 years in the past or 35 years, whatever it was. Now, let's say it had been 500 years in the past, an alternate universe. Then you could argue, well, there's nothing alternate about it, is there? What's the alternate theme? It was the fact that there were people common to both universes that made the alternate universe a thing. Otherwise, they might as well have just done a time travel thing. But, but no, Knights of the Old Republic is not alternate universe. And it's not that even that it might as well be, because it is, the events in it are referenced in the older stuff. Yoda talks about Darth Bane, the Rule of Two comes up in the Star Wars films. The Old Republic is referred to in the films, as well as canon stuff that's based around the films as well. No. Oh yeah, that was the other thing, the Star Trek reference there. That said, I've never watched Star Trek period. Yeah, I was rubbishing the latest Star Trek films because they did. That's what came up. I wasn't actually bashing Warlords of Draenor, even though I can if you want, because it was terrible. The storyline wise, that is. But yeah, the Star Trek films I didn't like at all. The alternate, I'd have rather they just did proper origin stories, is what I was saying, instead of this alternate universe crap, because it was awful. And yeah, that's what I was saying. But it's basically, whenever I've had to suffer watching particularly alternate universe films or seeing it in games stuff, it's just bad. It's just very bad. That's my opinion anyway. So, on to the last one. We have an Idiot's Corner. This is absolutely hilarious, this one. So, this was on the Vulpera video. And we had someone who first wanted to do me a whole essay about how retarded I was and how I got all these things wrong. Which, first of all, I was going to respond to all their points and point some things out. And then I thought to myself, no, actually, I'm not going to pick on this guy, because I think what the problem is, ultimately, is obviously the video, although, you know, true, was nonetheless very tongue-in-cheek, of course. You know, and I sometimes get, you know, with the internet, people don't know you that well. They don't necessarily know how flippant I am. And they can take it a bit too seriously. And then I sort of thought to myself, some of these things that they're going through, I'm thinking, they don't get subtlety at all. And I thought to myself, okay, well, let's say this person, you know, is quite far on the autism spectrum. I really don't want to pick on this person for that. So I sort of was going to leave it. But there was one comment, their first comment here, was, first, the description proves that you're just a hater because there's just insults everywhere. Plus, they're not foxes, but fennecs, just basic animal knowledge. And I couldn't leave this one alone as a scientist. I'm sorry. One, fennec means fox in the sort of language, the area where Morocco, North Africa type thing. The word means fox. And then what you might say is you said, oh, yeah, well, that's just what they called it, translation thing. They're not actually, you know, biologically foxes. So then you go, okay, fennecs are from the genus Vulpes, which is the Latin for fox. Oh, Vulpes, that sounds a little bit like it might be the origin of the word Vulpera. And then you think to yourself, oh, okay, let's say this person is a shit-hot zoologist and they've done a lot of research on fennecs and they've determined that they're not actually biologically related to foxes. First of all, that wouldn't be basic animal knowledge. Second of all, what you'd have to do in that situation is to write a paper, get it published, and get the scientific community to reclassify them. Because at the moment, the scientific classification is that they are foxes. You know? So, couldn't let that one swing. Sorry. If you're going to get something like that, with me, a scientist, you're going to have to be right, because I ain't going to let that one lie. I'm not going to let that one pass over. So anyway, there's the mailbox. Hopefully it's successfully recorded this time. I was talking on my video diaries on Patreon today how this is actually the second time I've had to try and do this. Bloody Windows 10 updates, as well as other things conspiring against me. Sorry if you can hear things out in the background, but you know, it's super hot today, even though it's getting quite late now. It's still super hot. I need to get some more ice made. Thanks for watching anyway. If you've enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.